Here's a question for you. How is your health when it comes to your finances? You really need to treat your financial health just like you would your physical health. It is so important for your overall well-being. So I went straight to the expert that I trust for this, a friend and someone I've interviewed for many years on topics just like this. You might know her as the Smart Cookie, Sandra Grahame. Good to see you today.
Good to see you. I am so excited to be catching up with you and chatting with you. Highlight of my week for sure.
Oh, thanks. Well, the same. And I just have always been able to ask you to be a guest over the many years on the news, on the morning news, in talking about how to save money, the best ways to structure your money. And I know this is what you focus on full time. So why is it that we really have to focus on this? I mean, obviously for our well-being, but to feel that balance in our life, because if we're struggling with our finances, then we're certainly not happy and balanced.
Yeah. And it really goes so much deeper than just the balance in your bank account, right? Like what we're really talking about here is financial wellness. And what that means is having the sort of freedom and just the financial flow in your life in a way that works for you and allows you to be the healthiest, most vibrant version of yourself. Because what happens when we're just not conscious of that and we don't talk about money enough and we are in our heads about money so much. Since we've been kids, right? We have these like stories that we play about money in our minds. And truly, it's not just a mindset thing that lives in our bodies too. Like physically, when we're feeling stressed about money, that can cause physical illness. It can cause us to eat unhealthy, make poor choices. It's all related. So really adding the financial picture and talking about money and learning the tools to create that financial consciousness and wellness is one of the key pieces when you're looking at your whole wellness as the bigger picture.
Do you think a lot of our financial habits come from our childhood?
Oh, for sure. And this is honestly something I resisted this for so long, the like limiting beliefs and the stories we tell ourselves. But really, it's so true. And it doesn't mean, you have to have had like a horrible childhood and a completely dysfunctional, situation with money. There's just little things along the way, right? Like I'll give you my example. And I had like a beautiful upbringing and my mom and dad are amazing, but they were very risk adverse, which is great because they, saved a ton of money and were able to retire, et cetera. But that like little story for me has been like, okay, well, like you need to save so much and, you don't want to make a mistake with money. Like that has been a story for me. I still work on that. Like that's going to be a lifelong practice of being afraid to make a mistake or afraid to lose money somehow. And so I think it's important to look back and just with awareness, right? Like we're not looking at this from a place of judgment or for yourself or, maybe your family members, but it really is when you hear beautiful meditation teachers talk about how to meditate, and it literally just is watching your thoughts like clouds pass by. It's really as simple as that. So when you're thinking about, what are some of those stories that I catch myself saying, and what is coming up when I'm having this conversation or I'm thinking about making this financial choice, and just sort of watch that thought as it goes across your mind. And again, you're not judging it. You're just kind of watching it to bring yourself into a place of awareness. And that is the first step. And then we can work to kind of reprogram and reframe that.
Well, everyone has a different story. They have a different past. They have a different method, of course, of how they manage, how they might manage with their family as a whole or their husband or their wife. So where do you start this process for people of financial wellness, just feeling good and getting structured? This is huge. Where do you begin?
Oh my God. And it feels so good. Even if you're the person, and Natalie, like I'm the most unlikely person to be the person who talks about money full time for a living. Like this is all me as a person who is, I still have a story. Like I'm not the girl who's naturally good with numbers, especially. This is something that I taught myself. The whole Smart Cookies got started by girlfriends getting together and teaching one another about really this, creating financial wellness. So no, like if anybody can do it, if you're thinking right now, like, oh my gosh, we're talking about money and I don't want to do it. Like you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. So it all starts with like truly bringing awareness to that mindset. That is super important. And you can just even if you just jot down in a notebook or on a piece of paper right now, or if you're listening, just grab your phone and just be like, my beliefs about money are, and just kind of keep a running list of those, so that then you can work to, when you have that thought cross your mind, right? Like, oh, if I'm focusing on creating wealth, I'm just being greedy, and like wealthy people are just miserable and greedy anyways, right? So if that is a belief of yours, if that's coming up somehow, then how can you reframe that? So instead saying, oh my goodness, like a wealthy woman really inspires and uplifts, and a financially fulfilled and a woman who has that financial wellness is able to uplift and encourage others and be an inspiration for her family, right? So just flipping that script a little bit. The cool thing about your brain is that you can actually retrain it so even though you have those beliefs, you can absolutely retrain it and slowly but surely sort of deprogram those things that are holding you back. And then the next step before you even look at the numbers is to really think about what is meaningful to you. Like, what is that vision of the life that is so aligned in what is true and important to you as a person, and create that picture, that story. So I have an exercise that I do, and it really is just that. It's called Your Day Well Lived. And you look at it, you look sort of outside of your current situation. And I like to say 3 years out, only because 3 years is a long enough time where it gives you enough space to be like, okay, things could shift, but also not so far out that you feel like, oh my gosh, that's so far into the future. There's so many things I can't control. And so I don't even want to go there. So kind of use that 3 year out. And then literally write out, from the moment you get out of bed, from the moment you open your eyes, like, how are you feeling? What are you smelling? Who are you surrounded by? Paint that picture in such vivid detail that you can literally like taste, smell, see, like feel in your bones what that sort of ideal life doesn't have to be perfect. I don't like the idea of like a perfect day, because nothing is ever perfect, but really like what is aligned to you and what is feeling good. This is all about like aligning in feelings, and then write it out word for word so that you are so connected to what is important to you. That vision then becomes your compass for creating financial goals. Because if you're just creating financial goals and you're getting out the bank statements and you're looking at the spending and immediately freaking out and having a mini panic attack, or trying to have that conversation with your spouse and things are
That's
going.
when I stuff it all back in a folder and go, okay, I'm good.
Okay,
it just is going to live in that folder.
Just stick that away. We had, Natalie, you'll love this, when we were the Smart Cookie girls and I, this is years ago when we started Smart Cookies together. And my girlfriend Robin used to keep her bills in her microwave. And we're like, Robin, what?
So that she could like make it explode if she needed to.
I guess, right? Like, I don't know what the theory was there. But yeah, but honestly, having that vision and really knowing like what is important to you is so important to do before you take control and look at the financial picture, because then you're aligned in like why this is important to you, right? So if you're setting a financial goal to, let's say, I want to save $1,000 before the summer, or I want to like amp up our retirement accounts. When you look at that vision for your life, what you want to really think about is, why is that financial goal important to me? And from there, from that place of making smart, just being aligned in what is important to you, then it becomes so much easier to look at the numbers with like non-judgment, with not overwhelm, and create, 90-day goals. My friend Kate Northrup calls it like micro goals, right? Like, don't get so overwhelmed while you're looking at like, oh my gosh, I need like $2 million if I'm going to retire and like live the life that I want. Like, take it into little micro goals. Like, what do you need to do in the next week and maybe 30 days just to feel better about your financial situation? This is not about, aligning with what someone else wants to do. This isn't about keeping up with the Joneses. This is about aligning to what is important to you. And so then you can create those little itty bitty action steps. And then every time, you're feeling that overwhelm come in, you're feeling that like maybe you had a weekend where the Amazon purchases got a little out of control, or your trip to Target where you wanted to buy toothpaste turned into a $250 shopping spree.
We all know how that feels. Right? Oh,
We've all done that. But it's really having the grace to be like, okay, that happened. That's fine. Let's just realign with the goals. Let's realign with what's important. I'm not going to beat myself up and let myself like spiral into, 30 days or a year later of the same pattern. Let's recenter, let's regroup, and move forward. Because then what happens is, yeah, we're all going to have setbacks along the way, but you're always going to kind of be 3 steps ahead. So when you have that little setback, you're still going to continue to move forward.
Yeah.
And that's where the relief and that financial wellness starts to really come into practice.
So good. Yeah. I mean, you have to do that in any aspect of life. Why is it any different with your finances? If this could be the same with, I need an exercise program. Well, what are your goals?
Yes.
I need a parenting plan. Well, what are your goals? I mean, right. You have to be able to do that with every aspect of your life, not in an overwhelming way, like you just said, but you have to be able to define what you really want if you're going to get there.
And
right?
What matters to you. Because if you don't know what matters to you and you don't know what's important to you, someone else is going to tell you, right? Like, we are inundated by marketing messages all the time. And that's fine. But then you have your filter on, right? You're like, boop, that's important to me. That's not. Like, it's
right.
like a reviewing of your spending, like your financial choices. Suddenly you can like declutter all those little things that aren't important and get super hyper focused on what is.
Yeah. And I know as a mom, you have 2 kids, I've got 3, that everything I do, is this just me or is this you too? Yeah. I do with the sense of, I better be sure that I'm modeling this right. Like, if I react that way, or if I go and I spend on something like this, am I going, it's okay for you to do that too? Like, do you do that, or is it just me?
I do it all the time, and especially now. And my son Jack especially, so he's going to be 10 this year, which is so crazy. And he's just so observant and like constantly asking questions about money. I was like, oh God. And like, I'm the girl who does this for a living. Like, I've got to make sure
that froze.
Sandra. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Test, 1, 2, 3.
You just froze. You froze in the funniest way too. It was like
always the funniest days. So cute.
Okay, so you said your son Jack, who's 10, which just blows me away because I remember when you were pregnant. So finish the story.
Okay. So my son Jack, who's 10, is super observant and asking a million questions all the time, right? And as I'm like, oh my goodness, I do this as a living. I really need to make sure I'm modeling the right. It's not even the right tools financially for me. It's more about like, I think about his mindset all the time, and I really want him to see money as a tool to make choices with, right? And so even when this is a big one, we're at Target, for example, and he wants to buy the Nerf gun. And so for me, I'm like, that's great. Like, if you are making that choice with your money, like, let's think about it. Make sure that you don't, is there anything else that you would rather save that money for? I kind of walk them through like my own, what I would say to myself if I was all of a sudden tempted to impulsively spend on something. So that for me, I just want him to understand, and my kids, both of them, to know that money is a tool that can truly allow them to, when it's nurtured, when you have that like wellness perspective about it, to live the life and have the impact on the world that you really want. So it's really important to just be intentional and have a good relationship with money. So that's a big one for me. And I'm like, if you don't love it, this goes back to it. I do this with my husband too, because I am that girl. I'm like, it's not coming into our house. It's not going into my closet unless I love it. Like, absolutely love it. And that really is like the guiding, my guiding decision filter, and what I hope that they are somehow, like their little sponge minds are soaking that up. I
love that tip. Like, unless you absolutely love it, why are we cluttering our minds, our closets, our house? Like, I'm going through a kind of minimalist phase of, I'd rather have fewer things I absolutely love. And so I love that tip. That's a great one for parenting. Okay. So other financial wellness tips. You kind of got us started on this path of, you need to write down what your goals are.
Sure.
What else would you suggest?
Yeah, I think honestly, that is the biggest piece of it. Having the vision, having the goals, making smart financial choices. I mean, it's not just about, deciding, am I going to refi my house? Am I going to, there's those big life decisions, but there's a million different micro decisions that we make throughout the day too, right? Spending choices. And when you look at your spending, I love to look at it as like a spending edit. So if you're looking at your money, and this is a great exercise to do, I get asked all the time, like, how do you, like, as couples in money, how do you go through, like, I feel like, you know, one partner is maybe like going off the rails a little bit in one area, but everyone has their own, you know, situation with money.
That's a whole different podcast, my friend.
We'll go there.
Marriage podcast.
Yeah, exactly. But a place to start is something I like to call spending awareness. And so you can do this, you know, with your family, or you can just do it for yourself. And it really is sort of like pulling up your bank statements, pulling up your credit card statements, and just going through and asking yourself, looking at the money that is spent. First of all, on those things that you have to spend money on, have you negotiated? Have you called your service provider lately and just said, like, hey, I'm really excited. I would love to be, I've been a customer of yours for, you know, 5 years, 10 years, would love to be a customer going forward. Just want to make sure, I'd love to work together to make sure that I'm getting the very best pricing possible, right? And constantly having those conversations will save you a ton of money every month. Like, it
shocks me.
It's actually,
it shocks me when I'm calling for something else, and then all of a sudden there's this deal that saves me $100 a month on my cable or phone bill. I'm like, wait a minute, why didn't you tell me this was available before?
I know,
but let this go on.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's where it's really important to just be proactive as a customer. One real quick hack that I actually love, and it saves me so much time. So there's a website, it's called gethuman.com. And so if you go to this website before you call your cell phone provider or your cable provider, and you put in that company's name, it will give you the number to call and the like dial pad combo, press 4 for so-and-so, to get an actual human being on the line who can help you. Because sometimes we resist those calls because we know we're going to spend like an hour talking to no one.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the website will save you a ton of time and help you save a ton.
Wow. I love that. Yeah. Terrific tips. Well, Sandra, I always love talking to you. I always get so much out of it. And I hope we can do it again really soon, help people with their wellness, not just, you know, I like to do that physically, I like to do that mentally, but finances are such a big part of that. So I have 2 questions I ask everyone. And I'm excited to hear your answers to this, because I've learned so much from my guests. The first one is, what's your favorite productivity tool? Doesn't have to be a device. It can be anything that you enjoy or you use that helps you.
Productivity tool. I have looked for years for like an agenda and a planner that I really love. And I love this one. It's by a company. She's actually in Vancouver, but she ships all over, called Still Classics, STIL. And what I love about it is that it has a little spot. I love vision boards. I create like a mood board and a vision board every single quarter. And so within this planner, she has like a little spot for your vision board, for your like intention. So it's time management, but it's also like wellness management too. Just making sure my tasks on like a day-to-day basis are aligned with how I'm feeling. And again, those like big picture goals. So I love
that. That goes right along with everything you said. You can look at it to kind of remind yourself your vision board, your goals. Okay, good one. Thank you. And then my second question is, what is your purpose and when did you discover it? And I know that's a lot for the end of a podcast, but I just love hearing how people figured out what they wanted to do in life.
Oh my gosh, Natalie, this has been my mission this past year, because I was feeling a lot of unclarity about that. And so I invested more than honestly I've ever invested in anything, in like coaching programs and masterminds, because I was like so dedicated to really uncovering like my true purpose. So that said, I feel like I'm so confident in knowing that I love helping women like step into their potential and the life that is true to them. Right? Not what, as women, and especially when we have families, we're taking care of everyone all the time. We are thinking about everyone else all the time, but to really step into your potential and use your genuine voice and live your truth, like I will do that all day, every day. And I love it. And I feel so grateful to be able to do that every day. And
you do it in such a beautiful and inspiring way. So I'm grateful for you, and I love the advice, and let's talk again soon.
Yes, I would love that.